Hi, my name is Paco Nathan, and I'm with O'Reilly Media. We're here at Strata Data Conference in London, and it's a pleasure to be joined today by Usman Khan, Principal Program Manager at Oracle. Usman, very good to talk with you.
Good to talk to you.
Wonderful. Can you give us an overview of Oracle Cloud infrastructure and how this is evolving?
Oracle Cloud is really the second generation cloud that we've developed at Oracle. I was part of the first generation over at another cloud vendor, and a few years ago we had another cloud offering, and it worked fairly well. But then we thought, how do we step back and create a differentiated cloud offering, right? That kind of works for enterprises and big data workflows and really performance-hungry workflows.
Right.
So kind of stepped back and thought of what are the optimizations we need to make. And so we built up a new cloud from the scratch and from the ground up, which is blazing fast compute, has really fast network storage, and then the cloud services that you typically want with the public cloud. So essentially, as we were building the cloud, we had three core pillars in mind. And those were, one, obviously, unsurprisingly, it has to be a really good place to run Oracle workflows, right? So it really must run Oracle databases and applications better than anywhere else. So that's part one, and kind of optimizing all of the infrastructure to do that really, really well. And interestingly, we're at Strata, so a lot of those optimizations is what you want to do with big data and performance-hungry workloads in general. The second thing we wanted was, how do we create a cloud that is more performant than what you can typically get on a cloud? So essentially having the bare metal compute and bare metal kind of performance that customers are used to on-premise, right? And how do you do that at a great price range? Because we were coming to the market at a later stage, because we'd done this before in other places, the team has a lot of experience there. We were able to kind of step back and innovate there and say, hey, we'll design this from the ground up, and because of that, we've been able to deliver really good performance at really cheap prices. So typically we are 30% cheaper on compute, 86% cheaper on network, 50% cheaper on storage. So it becomes a very compelling offering for customers.
Oh,
and third, the really key part of why we're here at Strata is, how do we build that open ecosystem, right? It's such a vibrant ecosystem for big data ISVs here.
Right.
And so talking to the ISVs and how do we create a cloud that's really a great place for ISVs to run on OCI. So that's kind of the three pillars that we had for building the Oracle Cloud.
Oh, fantastic. How about the big data side? What is the approach then to integrating that part? It seems like that would be complex to go from the applications that are running on Oracle and blending in the frames, but also valuable.
So it's actually it's actually very similar. If you look at what Oracle has been doing for 40 years, right? We have 40 years of experience in big data management, analytics, and the optimizations we've done for those workloads are, hey, you want a really fast network so you can move data around. Right. You want really fast compute. You really want to optimize for the database. But then, if you think about it, big data workloads are almost exactly the same. You want to have really fast compute that you can process the data with. You want to move things around quickly between nodes so you can transfer data, stream data. And it's really, really cool if you can just move the big data cluster next to your Oracle database or other data flows, right? And stream data, back and forth. So those have translated really well to us. So we've been able to get really strong performance out of the same optimizations, L2, L3 layer optimizations at the network, and then be able to transfer that into performance gains for customers. The second thing has been, because of the open ecosystem, again, we've been able to go out and partner with companies like Cloudera, Strata.ai, and say, we will make this a really strong place for you guys to run and shine. And so it's not really, it's essentially the same as a customer running these on-premise. You're able to run the same applications on-premise and on the cloud. Right. So it becomes a much more natural transition from on-premise as well.
What kind of strategy is Oracle taking then with respect to this AI ecosystem and use of big data? How are you leveraging the trends that you're seeing? As I guess another way that I would describe that. I can imagine we're learning a lot here at Strata about big data. So. Any kind of feedback that you're getting from customers that's feeding into strategy?
So again. One of the core reasons for coming to Strata is to learn and listen, right? Yeah. So talk to a lot of customers. There's a lot of really innovative companies here. So essentially talking to them and understanding what they're doing. In terms of the trends we're seeing from customers, we're really seeing two things that are kind of new, which is one, that hybrid really is the new normal. And so essentially I'm a cloud person. I've designed cloud services for a number of years. But what we're realizing is that enterprise customers, especially the kind that we work with, they can't move everything to the cloud, right? For data governance reasons, for sovereignty reasons, you need to have data living within a country's boundaries or on-premise, right? For example, if you have a line of business application that is on-premise, you want the data source right next to it. So all of our customers want to run data sources and data processing essentially on-prem and in the cloud. So we've focused a lot on creating hybrid solutions. So if you want to run on-prem, we'll connect you back to a big data cluster or a private network. If you want to run in multiple clouds, we have cross-connectivity with all of the major cloud vendors. So really giving customers options is our key focus area, right? How do we give customers the option to run wherever they want? So the second thing of that is that with sovereignty being such a big concern, with governance being a big concern, how do we let customers choose where they put the data, right? So we've been partnering with Cloudera, for example, for a number of years on a big data appliance. And so that lets customers put that appliance directly in the data center. So, following that strategy, giving customers options on price, giving them options on where they put the data, where, how they want to process that data has really been, has been a hallmark. As part of that, we essentially is what we call, we want to bring the algorithm to the data rather than the data to the algorithm.
Oh, interesting.
So if you're running data in an Oracle database, we have a machine learning system called OML that runs directly on the structured data there. So you don't have to move the data into a big data cluster at all. If you want to run on a big data appliance, you can do that. You can absolutely run AI ML programs both from vendors and from Oracle directly on the appliance. And of course, if you want to move to the cloud, you have so many options there, right? You can run our own data science cloud, which is essentially an acquisition we did last year. Makes it really fast and easy to create open collaborative data science projects. Or you can run partners like H2O.ai, and they give you really cool performance, really cool set of features as well. So
a very rich set of options.
Exactly, right? So it's all about giving the options to the customer. So rather than saying that we know best or one size fits all, it's really about saying, here's a very innovative ecosystem. Let's work with the ecosystem, showcase that, and make it really shine.
Now, you mentioned about moving the compute to the data and the gravity of the data. And just to contextualize that, I think that if you were to pull the cluster traces off of very large tech giants and the clusters they're running, you'd see that so much of the resources are just spent moving the data to the compute.
Absolutely, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of cost to move data, right? So especially, it's really easy to move data into the cloud, and it's really difficult to move data out of the cloud, right? It gets very expensive to do that. So a lot of our strategy has been around how do we make that easier for customers. A big enterprise customer has been doing big data for 20 years now, right? They're used to doing this on premise. They have a large cluster footprint that they're using right now. So rather than saying, give all of that up, just move to the cloud, we're saying, hey, run the things that you want, your most secure data, your regulated data on-prem, and then connect that to the cloud. When you need to burst, when you have an elastic workload, if you need to bring up a 1,000 node or 4,000 node or 10,000 node cluster, you can bring that up in 20 minutes, run your big data workload, tear that down, and you only pay for what you need. So that's been kind of a hallmark of what we've been doing.
That's a really very rational approach to architecture and trade-offs there.
Right.
I mean, it's really the best of both worlds.
Again, coming from a cloud-first background, I've been building cloud-native applications for a number of years, and again, a lot of focus on open source there, a lot of focus on partners there. But when you talk to Oracle customers, when you talk to larger customers, cloud is obviously a great option, right? You have infinite data lakes on OCI, on really fast storage, you have very fast compute, but all of that is useful for bursty and transient workloads.
Right.
If you have things that, if you're a regulated bank in Russia, for example, you can't move data out into the public cloud. So at that point, you might need to actually run something on-prem. So we want to give those options back to the customer and empower them to make the right decisions.
Oh, very good. You mentioned about the aspects of open. Could you drill down into that a bit? How does that really help advance this initiative?
Absolutely. So, as a late player in the cloud market, we had to make some very core decisions, right? How do we differentiate ourselves? Obviously, we want to make sure that, like I said, Oracle runs great on Oracle, right? Price and performance is really, really strong, and again, we're going to be typically 30 to 40% cheaper for a Cloudera cluster Cloudera cluster running on OCI versus anywhere else. We're about 40% faster. But then the key differentiator for us is that we did not want to go reinvent the ecosystem. Right, I see Cloudera, I see H2O.ai, I see a lot of these partners out here doing very cool stuff. Yeah. So how do we create, how do we showcase the partners on OCI? How do we showcase them through OEM applications? How do we showcase them through first-party native applications that we kind of bring them onto the cloud itself? And then how do we create an ecosystem where we're not trying to reuse things like Terraform? So Terraform being an open source format for infrastructure as code. Right. So doing those things actually makes it easier for customers to adopt us, which is good for us. It makes it easier for customers to run things both in different places. You can run the same Terraform scripts to run a big data cluster in OCI. You can move that over to another cloud vendor. It works. You can move Kubernetes over from OCI to your on-prem environment. So again, that open ecosystem makes it much easier for us to gain customers, and it makes it much easier for customers to run their business at scale.
I can imagine there's also other benefits in terms of training, using more of the open tools, then you have a broader audience of people who could be staffing for these projects.
A lot of the CIOs I talk to, one of their primary concern is, how do I build that team, right? How do I build the data scientist team, in places that you typically would not be able to hire a lot of very skilled data scientists. And if you were to create something from scratch, a new language or a new ML algorithm or a new data set, it becomes very difficult. With using open source, you have an existing set of people who are very familiar with it, who know how to do this already, and it makes it easier to build up that team. And again, there's really good partners already out there that are writing that code, so you can work with them directly to build your applications.
Now, I'm curious about partners. You mentioned about Cloudera, H2O, Terraform, HashiCorp.
HashiCorp,
yeah. What are some of the other partners involved?
So again, because we want to make sure that partners are front and center, we're right next to Cloudera in the booth upstairs. And if you look at the 4 demos we have going, obviously we have some Oracle technologies, we have serverless Spark running, we have autonomous databases running. But right next to those, we have 3 demos running for Cloudera. We have a demo running for DataStax and Confluent, right? And these are some of our core partners. Cloudera obviously is a natural partner. We've been working with them since 2011 for the BDA, Big Data Appliance. We're doing some really interesting work with them in terms of a new service coming out on OCI called the Big Data Service. And at the same time, as Cloudera goes through that evolution of moving to a Cloudera, a cloud-first company through the Cloudera Data Cloud, we are working with them to make sure that we are still the best place to run Cloudera anywhere, anywhere in the cloud. So that's a very natural, very long-lived partnership for us. Confluent and DataStax both are leaders in their space. They're very, complementary to our offerings in the cloud as well. So essentially, we showcase them because if you want to have large streaming data sets moving in for IoT, for real-time trading, for manufacturing, Confluent does a really good job there. Obviously, we have streaming services as well, but again, customers again have the option of picking one or the other. So Confluent, DataStax, Cloudera are some of the ones that are more traditional. And then stuff like H2O.ai, they're doing some really cool stuff with driverless AI. How do we kind of bring that to the customer so they can start using it and start adopting it? So those are kind of the key partnerships we're evolving.
Now, it strikes me that the first generation of cloud offerings were very granular. You had essentially a VM that was not unlike the VMs you had in the data center anyway.
Absolutely.
And so the focus was there, whereas it seemed like the use cases were much more about leveraging frameworks. In this generation now, are you able to offer more of a high level, more of a framework as a service endpoint?
Absolutely. So again, we started with a bare metal offering, so we were actually lower than the VM itself. Right? We were just giving you the direct server.
Even better.
And again, if you are able to, if you just want straight performance and you want to just run as fast as possible, that works great. But now, over the past 2 years, as we've evolved our services, we've been able to offer more higher level services. So we have a serverless Spark offering coming out called Dataflow. And so you just submit the job, you don't have to spin up any compute, it just processes the data and gives you the results. That becomes really powerful. We have Data Science Cloud coming up. So essentially you get out of the business of managing infrastructure. You just say, hey, I want a project, I want to be able to share that globally with my team. So making that a high level construct. We have data integration, a lot of offerings on data integration. So how do you build a data lake from 3 different clouds from 2 different data centers all into OCI object storage, right? There's a lot of ETL going on there. There's a lot of transforms and real-time streaming going on there. So we have offerings coming there as well. So it really is, again, if you want to run your infrastructure, you can do that super fast. If you want to go high level and PaaS and SaaS, you can do that as well.
So there are patterns for that kind of integration then?
Absolutely. So again, if you want to, if you have really performance-heavy workload, maybe you just want to run directly on bare metal.
Yeah.
Now with bare metal, the nice thing is you would never have any overhead even of Oracle code running on that box, right? So when we give you 52 cores, 51 terabytes of NVMe RAM, NVMe storage, and 768 gigs of RAM, it's all yours. So you can actually be very consistent with what you want to do. If you see that something takes 15 minutes at 2 a.m., it takes 15 minutes at 2 p.m., right? So there's no closing
exactly.
But at the same time, if you just want to have data scientists quickly spin up a cluster, run a model, and tear that down, that's available as well.
Very good. How about other trends that you're hearing through the conference or just in general right about now?
So that's been interesting, right? So a big part of Strata is talking to people and kind of learning as well. Yeah. So Hadoop has always been a traditional, really big workload. Yeah. That's definitely the case, but it seems to be moving towards Spark, moving towards serverless Spark. Yeah. Building data lakes has been a really, a thing that I've been hearing a lot, talking about how do you have this structured, unstructured data all collecting into one place, at hopefully a very cheap cost, making it available for downstream services. And then how do you bring, predictive analysis using AI and ML into it? So. What I'll be going and looking back into is that really compelling story around data lakes and then streaming data in and out and AI and ML on top. That's going to be, it's a very basic construct, like it's been around for years, but how do you really make that shine for enterprises that are adopting that now?
Right, and this is the moment that we're seeing so many mainstream businesses sort of cross the chasm. Absolutely.
Fintech, insurance, there's so much that's still running on-premise right now. Yeah. So how do you make it easy for those for those customers to have confidence in the cloud, to see something that they're very used to seeing on-prem as well. So a similar structure, a similar governance structure, similar audit trails. If you are going to be audited by a federal government, you want to make sure you have everything that you're used to on-premise as well. So helping those customers make that, as you said, cross the chasm into the cloud has been a core part of my work.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
It was really good to talk to you.
Great.